I'm Andrew Henderson, NomadCapitalist.com. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report. If Nostradamus were alive today, he'd have a hard time keeping up with my next guest. The king of predictions, Gerald Celente, has predicted everything from the 1987 stock market crash to the boom in bottled water. He holds court at TrendsResearchInstitute, home of his TrendsJournal. He's here with us today. We don't want to waste any time. Mr. Celente, thank you for being my guest. Let's talk what is on everyone's mind right now, Cyprus. It is the next step in the government reaching right into your pocket. Talk to us about some trends you see in Cyprus.
Well, it's a trend we had forecast. You go back to our TrendsJournal, top trends of 2012, over a year ago, and we warned about bank holidays. And before that, I've been on the media talking about bank holidays. And I was talking primarily first about the United States having one. And then as things started to unravel in Europe, I warned that that would be the next place it was going to happen. And that was about 8 months ago. And then this March, we warned that, in February rather, we warned that the equity markets would be rattled in either March or April. And we didn't know exactly why, but, you know, the timing was right. And so what's going on in Cyprus is very predictable. And we look at that as the first test case to see how much they can get away with. And when you read the language, Andrew, it's pretty disgusting. You pick up the Financial Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. When it first started happening in Cyprus, they called it a tax on deposits. And the other lovely word that they use, that white shoe boy language word, is haircut. They gave depositors a haircut. They stole the money from the people. Can anybody say that? And we warned that it was going to happen because the whole financial system is unraveling. Look what happened. Ben Bernanke just had a public a press conference. It kind of reminded me when I was in high school, the high school reporters asking the principal softball questions. But be that as it may, more QE, quantitative easing. The markets are rigged. The bond market's rigged. They're saying it right in front of you. They're going to buy what? You know, $85,000 worth of crap every month from now until at least in 15, as they're saying it, because they're going to keep interest rates, they're saying, that low until that time. So when we go back to Cyprus, you understand that the only reason that the world economy is stabilizing at any level possible is because of all of this money that's being dumped into the system. In the United States, they call it quantitative easing. Over there in Europe, they have a different line of BS. They call it OMT. That's their BS, ongoing monetary transactions, and before that, long-term refinancing operations. They'll throw. How's that, to throw you a line of baloney? So what they're doing is there's no way to solve these problems. And markets are going to continue to be rattled as the banking system continues to unravel. It is no question about it. The only way they're holding it up is by these ultra-low interest rates and dumping money into the system. So what does that mean in the United States, for example? Well, you heard the American Banking Association say that, don't worry, your money is insured. Well, guess what? It was insured over there in the EU, too. That's right. In the Eurozone, deposits of over 100,000, under 100,000 euros were guaranteed.
That's a requirement for being in the Eurozone, 100,000 euros.
Right. So they screw the people. So now in the United States, they don't have the money to back this thing if there's a collapse. So will they call it a financial collapse? I doubt it. What they'll say is that, you know, the Chinese, North Koreans, Iranians, you pick them, anyone you want, did something, and maybe they attacked our, you know, cyber warfare or terrorist or false flag or real. They'll come up with an excuse to close the markets and close the banks because they can't solve the problems. Look what they're doing. They can't even solve. First it was the fiscal cliff, and now it's sequestering. You know, who made up a baloney word like that? They can't solve anything.
In cases like this, the world should be the teacher, history should be the guide. I think you share that opinion.
So go back in history. Can they do it here? Franklin Roosevelt did it with the Emergency Banking Act of 1933. Why won't they do it again? Well, now we have FDIC. Well, there's not enough money to cover the bad bets, but be that as it may, let's go back to 1933 again. Back then, the was pegged to gold, and gold was selling at $20.65 an ounce. And Franklin Roosevelt demanded that everybody turn in their gold. They confiscated it, penalty of law. And after they got all the gold in, hey, guess what? Gold is worth more than we thought. Ha, you sucker. You sold it to us for $20.65 an ounce. We just raised it to $35 an ounce. Oh, that means, by the way, you lost 70% of your purchasing power. That's what I believe they're going to do. They'll cover the bad bet. No, we're going to pay you. Don't worry. Don't worry. As soon as you get this straightened out, you're going to get your money. It's just not going to be worth anything. That's the way I see it unraveling, first in Italy or Greece, Spain or Portugal, one of those, maybe even Ireland, and then it's going to continue. So my belief is that unless you have your money, you ain't got nothing. And I learned that lesson with MF Global because I got effed by MF Global. I have 6 figures. I had 6 figures of money in a segregated account. A segregated account. And they stole it. Stolen in the Eurozone. You know, these are the people that Jesus Christ chased out of the money chain, out of the temple, you know, that he warned everybody about. So nothing has really changed in 2,000 years.
Gerald Celente runs the Trends Journal, TrendsResearch.com. What I think is so fascinating about what you do is that we talk about learning from history. People look back from 1933 all the way on back. They see these trends. 6 words that are wrong with America. We talked about the words ask and just, as in we're just asking you to lop off and steal part of your bank account. Talk to us about the 6 words wrong with America.
Well, I would say, you know, that there were actually 4 too big to fail. That's what killed capitalism. We have fascism. And you know, it's the merger of state and corporate powers. I mean, you heard Attorney General Eric Holder, or is it Himmler Holder? I keep getting him confused. You know, the guy that says that it's okay to drone anybody to death without any charges, without any judge, jury, without any habeas corpus. He said that the big banks are too big to fail. That they're too big to prosecute because they're too big to fail, essentially. And when I talked about Christ chasing the money changers out of the temple, and you're talking about history, go back to history. How about a name like James Madison? You know, these politicians are always shooting off their fat mouths, quoting the Founding Fathers. Try this for a quote. History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. Sound familiar? That was back in 74?
Well, it really has become Platitude City with these governments. Let's talk about Cyprus and the effects that I think you and I would agree are going to have aftershocks. It's going to have a ripple effect. People in the United States already having their freedom to move money around, clamp down on. Part of it's terrorism. Talk about the effects that you see, the trends you see in moving money to safer places, restrictions on that.
Well, they're already doing that. They're making it impossible. It's becoming harder and harder unless you're really at the top. You're one of the top criminals. You know, the word justice, by the way, is being misspelled. It's J-U-S-T-U-S, just us. You know, they're not going to prosecute the big guys because, hey, it caused too much disruption. We can't disrupt anybody. You haven't seen one head roll on Wall Street, have you? And you see what's going on. Try to renounce your citizenship and take up another one.
You're a traitor.
Oh, see how hard it is. I mean, you know, it's almost impossible anymore without it costing you dearly financially.
Gerald Celente writes the TrendsJournal. He's been the Nostradamus of all sorts of things over 32 years. TrendsResearch.com. He's my guest now. We'll come back. Want to continue to talk about the after effects of Cyprus, safe havens for money. Go to nomadcapitalist.com and get our free white paper for your 7 steps on finding the safe havens. We'll be back with Gerald Celente. I'm Andrew Henderson. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report. Andrew Henderson, nomadcapitalist.com. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report. Gerald Celente is my guest. We're talking trends. His TrendsJournal has set the precedent for predictions. He's the king of predictions, holding court at TrendsJournal.com, author of Trends 2000. Gerald, we talk about moving money to safe havens, geo-arbitrage, finding places where your money can be more safe, and just having an escape hatch. What do you see in terms of both capital in the bank, also gold, trends about moving that money, and more importantly, the public's perception of wanting to move it and not just saying America is the safest place and the best place there is?
Well, here's the thing, Andrew. I'm very weary about moving my capital anywhere except gold and getting that stored somewhere. And again, this is not, I want to make this really clear, this is not financial advice. I'm only telling people what I think. And the motto of the TrendsJournal, our quarterly publication, is think for yourself. So I'm not telling anybody what to think. Having your money, having your gold out of the country is one thing, and having it stored somewhere, and becoming harder, by the way, in Switzerland. Because, as I mentioned, they confiscated gold back in 1933. Where do you put your money? You were just talking about Cyprus. Cyprus was the equivalent to the Cayman Islands in that part of the world. Yep. And the game could change at any time. They have very low tax rates. It was a place to wash your money. That's the other thing I get a kick out of. I'm listening to CNBC. There's this guy, Simon, this little weenie, this little squeaky little jerk, and making fun of the Russians because they have their money in there, and making the comment, actually, as a matter of fact, as if he knows that it's all, dirty money. Yeah, not like that HSBC money laundering scam, different than that one, right, that just happened in I think they fined him $2 billion or thereabouts in December for anybody with attention deficit disorder. There's money laundering all over the place. There's nothing new about it. So where do you put your money? Just think about this. The people that had their money you don't own your money unless you have it in your possession, or you could get your hands on it. And I would not keep a lot of money because I'm a public figure. People know who I am. I would not keep a lot of money in my possession where I live, but I will put it where I could get my hands on it. Having said that, I'll tell you a story. 9/11 happened. If you read my book, Trends 2000, or subscribe to the TrendsJournal, or read USA Today on December 14th, 2000, I warned that Americans wouldn't be safe at home or abroad. There was a high probability of terror. So when 9/11 happened, and I've written about this, I'm 2 hours north of New York City. I see this thing unfold as I'm watching TV. First thing I did is I picked up the phone and called I called Fleet Bank. There was a Fleet Bank at the time. And I had all my money in certificates of deposit. I said, listen, I want them wired to my Rhinebeck branch over here. The guy cuts me off. He said, I started giving him the wire transfer information. He said, Wall Street's closed, and certificates of deposit are financial instruments traded on Wall Street. But rest assured, Mr. Celente, when Wall Street opens, you'll get your money. We're Fleet Bank. I said, oh, BS, So then I ran over to the bank, and I got my gold, and I got my guns, and I had a getaway plan. And I didn't know if they were going to whack Indian Point. because ostensibly, and I'm not saying whether or not 9/11 happened as they say, but as it was unfolding, they whacked the Pentagon, and the planes were ostensibly coming down the Hudson River. And me being a New Yorker, in case you couldn't tell by the accent, I know exactly, the layout around here. And Indian Point is about 40 miles directly north on the Hudson River, nuclear power plant of Ground Zero. So I said to myself, if they whack Indian Point, you're going to see chaos like you've never seen before. So I'm ready to get out of here. I'm going to head to Canada. From Canada, I could go anywhere. The point being, Andrew, I couldn't get my money. My money was stolen from me by MF Global.
Oh, it's like Cyprus. They keep pushing it back, and they'll push it back, and they'll push it back while they try and figure out what their plan is. Talk about gold storage, though. You've talked about that. We talk about that. What's the trend? I think we know the answer on the U.S. and other countries clamping down, just like they have with FATCA, on bank accounts. Now they want to make more laws, just saying we're going to make you declare every safe deposit box, vault, or cubby you have anywhere in the world.
Well, you saw the new legislation that just came out, giving the NSA, the CIA, all of them, the FBI, virtually every government institution that they want, all our financial information. So, of course, they know exactly what we have, where it is, and how they can get it. Fascism has come to America. I mean, you're not getting it. You want to talk about what's going on in Cyprus. They're doing the same thing virtually with these record low interest rates by allowing the big banks to borrow for almost nothing and paying the depositor nothing. So you're actually losing money by keeping it in your bank when you account for inflation, what you get and what you have to pay on for interest. So all we're saying, there's Gerald Celente's GC's 3Gs, guns, gold, and a getaway plan. And to me, that's what works for me. And no, they know everything about us. And now, of course, they could kill us if they want, and because El Presidente of Los Estados Unidos, that big banana republic that used to be called the United States of America, now the United Surveillance States of America, could do anything that they want.
Gerald Celente is my guest, TrendsJournal and TrendsResearch.com. So many people want to nip